Good morning and welcome to the County of Berrien. It's a pleasure to have you all here this morning. And I'm thankful that the weather stayed a little bit on the warm side, so we didn't wake up to freezing conditions, and we're glad you all made it here safely. Just as a reminder, please turn off any electronic devices or silence them during the course of the meeting. If you have any materials that you wish to have distributed to the board, please do so by giving it to the Sergeant of Arm, which is Commissioner Jim Kern. And if you wish to address the board during public comment, please do so by going to the podium, stating your name, jurisdiction, and you'll have 2 minutes to make your comment. With that having been said, I'll look to the clerk for roll call.
Okay. Bell.
Here.
Curran.
Here.
Freeling.
Here.
Harrison.
Here.
Hinkleman.
Here.
Majerick.
Here.
Pittsburgh.
Here.
Ballrath.
Here.
Werfel.
Here.
Yarborough. Elliott. Madam Chair, you have 10 present, 2 absent.
Excellent. We have a quorum. With that, looking on the agenda, the approval of the minutes from February 16th of 2023. I entertain a motion to do so. Moved by Pitchford. Is there support? Support by Majerick. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Minutes are approved. Scheduled discussion, grant application. So, oh no, I jumped it. How could I pass up a moment?
I thought maybe I forgot to put it on the agenda. Did
no,
I? Is it on the agenda?
It's on the agenda.
Okay, perfect.
I just was
That's okay.
remiss because I had already put a check next to it that I had taken care of it. So,
Anybody have any questions about the requisitions? Great, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Annette, for doing that. Now we are at the point of scheduled discussion, and I will turn it over to Brian and Dan Fetty from Community Development.
So Dan's going to talk with the group about over the past few months, you've seen some activity on a trail development, essentially trying to connect areas in the Whirlpool campus area. As way of background, we did apply for this as a Spark grant application, along with our Spark grant application for Silver Beach. Just a reminder, Silver Beach was approved. So Dan's going to talk to you about what would be essentially a second effort, see if the board is in agreement to chase this. Dan, are you ready?
Sure. Good morning, everyone.
I'm going to
Well, as Brian said, this is an update of where we stand on the funding for the Lakeview Trail, the M63 corridor trail that you've seen many times now. I think we've done a number of presentations on this. You'll recall that last fall, you received a letter, or Chairman Elliott received a letter from Harbor Shores, Whirlpool Foundation, Cornerstone Alliance, asking for the county's support in applying for and administering capital grants to help build this trail, which essentially will run from Higman Park all the way up to Monty Road by the Whirlpool global headquarters. This is a map of the trail that we're talking about. You can see, I don't think the highlighter, or maybe this thing doesn't. Basically, what you're going to be looking at is, if you look, maybe I can get the cursor here. It's this section right here that runs north-south along M63, again from Higman Park up to Monty Road. Basically, right around where, if anyone knows the golf course layout, it's right around where hole 10 is on the golf course. It would be a 12-foot wide hardened path, asphalt path that would be utilized for mountain bikes and other vehicles, and as well as pedestrians. It would not be suitable for non-motorized or small motorized vehicles like golf carts or stuff like that. So it's just basically bikes and pedestrian. Again, you can see this is kind of an architectural rendering of what it'll look like. Fairly simple, just an asphalt path running in the right of way of M63. One of the big concerns that everyone had about this, the county was going to apply for the grants and build this thing, is who's going to maintain it. The maintenance is not going to be extensive from what we understand from the engineers, but someone has to be able to maintain this property. So the proposed maintenance program, and again, this is reiterating what you were shown last fall, is that Whirlpool is going to donate a portion of their campus property right now that's currently on the tax rolls to the CPAF, which is the Community Progress Something Fund. It's essentially just a nonprofit real estate holding fund under the control of the Whirlpool Foundation. The idea there is that they would donate the property in, and then the anticipated property tax revenues would instead be diverted into this CPAF, this fund, along with a foundation endowment donation of $300,000. And that would provide essentially an endowment fund that could be drawn down for maintenance purposes as needed. In other words, the county wouldn't be responsible for funding the maintenance, nor would Benton Township or any other municipality. It would all be privately supplied through this endowment. And then there would be contracts in place to draw the money out of that endowment so that some entity could perform maintenance, and who that entity will be is still being considered right now. So a summary of activities as of last fall, there was about $6.9 million of essentially private commitments already in place for this project. And that would be the trail study that was done. Now, the county contributed to some of this as well. But there was the trail study that was completed, the design of the trail, the improvements to the Harbor Shore Golf Trails. That was part of what we showed you last fall, is about $200,000 of improvements to the walking paths and trails, which are publicly open over at the Harbor Shores Golf Course. The creation of the new Whirlpool mountain bike trail that many of you went to late last summer during the ribbon cutting. The funding for the underground tunnel that'll connect the east side of the Whirlpool campus to the side of the Whirlpool campus that's on the west of M63 along the lakefront. Of course, that trail goes under M63 to allow pedestrians and bikes to move back and forth without having to cross the road. The donation of the real estate for park purposes, that is an ongoing process right now. It hasn't been completed yet, but it's ongoing. And get the engagement of grant writing services, which we've been involved in. And then securing the funds for maintenance, again, an ongoing negotiation, but there's a commitment from Whirlpool Foundation for the $300,000. And then using the donated property to secure an additional $500,000 of deferred tax revenue over a 20-year period. So that's all the things, those are all the things that have either happened and have been completed or are ongoing right now. Now, last fall, you were asked to participate in a couple of things. There was a request for the road department to submit the tunnel permit for the M63 tunnel project. That has been completed. And there was a request for the county to apply for and administer these various grant funds. At the time, the breakdown of the grant funds looked like this: about $1.4 million from what's called the TAP program, that's Transportation Alternative Grant Program, run through MDOT. $300,000 from the DNR Trust Fund, which we're very experienced in administering, and about $600,000 from the Spark Grant Program. That was embodied in a resolution passed by the board last fall, where you authorized our department to go ahead and begin the submission of these grants. Principally the TAP grant, because that was first in line, but also the Spark and the DNR grant as the timing became available on those. So we did submit the TAP grant. That was the first in line. We also submitted the Spark grant. We have not submitted the DNR Trust Fund grant because they're not due until April 1st of this year. Now, since then, this is what's happened. The tunnel permits have been completed and construction is expected to begin the spring of this year. You've probably seen some newspaper articles about this in the last few weeks and today. The Transportation Alternative Program, the TAP application, we submitted that in December of 2022. We got word back almost immediately from MDOT staff that they were going to reject this. And the reason is we didn't have any local match. We were proposing to use Spark funds and DNR Trust Fund funds if we were successful in acquiring those. We were going to use those as match on the TAP application, and what DNR staff said is it's too speculative. We can't trust that as a match for the grant, so we're going to have to reject your grant application. As a result, we met with Whirlpool Foundation, and Whirlpool Foundation has agreed to commit $400,000 and change directly as a local match towards our TAP application, which is quite generous of them. So we are now submitting a new application for $1.6 million plus the $400,000 of local match. So for a total of a $2 million project. This is in, about double what we requested originally, but with the $400,000 as a 20% match to the project, we're eligible for $1.6 million, and that application is going out currently. If successful, the funding will be available sometime in 2025. The Spark grant application, we did end up requesting almost $1 million for that. It was not awarded. Frankly, we weren't surprised by that. When the county submitted the applications, of course, we submitted both the trail application and the Silver Beach application, and we were required to prioritize those applications. In other words, we had to tell them, if only one can be funded, which one do we want funded? And we all collectively agreed that that Jill's application was more pressing and was more dealt with issues that we needed more immediately, including, the replacement of all the playground equipment down at Silver Beach. So fortunately, Jill's application was funded. That's a big success for all of us. I mean, $850,000 of new park equipment is wonderful. The trail application, however, was rejected. We don't plan on resubmitting the trail application to the Spark program. And the reason is because we believe we're going to be successful on the TAP application now with the increased amount of funding. Spark is no longer necessary in order to complete the funding structure. So the last component of this is the anticipated $300,000 trust fund application that's due April 1st of this year. That $300,000, just to give you an idea, I don't have the map up, but there is a component of this trail running right around where Higman Park is that'll have to share currently a cart path for Harbor Shores. And MDOT is not too pleased with the idea of having a pedestrian trail that is also shared by golf carts. So if we're successful with the $300,000, that will help separate that portion of the trail. We'll be building a parallel trail to the golf cart trail to ensure that there are no golf carts coming out of the pedestrian portion of this. So that's what the $300,000 will be dedicated to. If we're unsuccessful, we're probably going to have some system out there of traffic control or signage until we're able to acquire the funds to make that formal separation and build that component out. So this is the current ask. I showed you what we were asked to do last fall. This is what we're currently being asked to do to complete this project. Apply for the trust fund grant April 1st and participate in the negotiation of the trail maintenance agreements that is going to be funded by this private endowment fund. We'll have to identify a partner who can provide large maintenance on the trail. That would be like large sections of asphalt replacement as that comes up. We're not anticipating this is going to be onerous. We'll probably have to do $15,000 to $20,000 of asphalt replacement a year. We'll just need someone who's experienced in doing asphalting work, contract for that. Obviously, it'll be a private provider doing the asphalting work, but we're going to have to have some construction management oversight. The road department would be a likely candidate for that. We've talked with, staff out there, and they think this is a reasonable thing they could do as long as they're being reimbursed for their time. As to the kind of the routine cleanup of the trail to make sure it's free of debris and so forth, the Whirlpool Cycling Club, the Friends of Berrien County Trails, there's a variety of different beneficial organizations in the area that we think we can coordinate to have kind of cleanup days or trail days and go out there and just kind of manage that. We've done this in the past with like beach cleanup programs. I'm sure many of you remember these. The point of example, the trail, the mountain biking trail down at Andrews University is currently being maintained at this level just by volunteer organizations that use it. So we'll have to negotiate those two aspects of this before construction can begin. But the new funding proposal now, you see we're still looking at $2.3 million of total valuation, but $1.6 million from the TAP grant, $400,000 generously from the Whirlpool Foundation, and $300,000 from the DNR Trust Fund. Now, in the coming weeks, we are required to hold a formal public hearing before we can submit that DNR trust application. So we'll have to come back. This is kind of a preview of what you're going to see, but I'll have to come back here in a couple of weeks and do a formal public hearing with the board. And then you will have to pass a resolution authorizing the application. Okay. So that's where we stand right now. It's progressing. It's actually progressing quite well. We've gotten a lot of private contributions, a lot of good movement with the interested parties and the communities that will use this this trail. It hasn't been all smooth sailing, but it looks like we're having good coordination with the affected and interested parties on this. So, any questions? Yes.
with maintenance besides asphalt, what about mowing, things like that?
There'll probably have to be some mowing along the sides of the trail, and that'll be part of the maintenance agreement.
So that would potentially be our road department?
Either that or parks, someone. And the idea is, first of all, do we have the time to do it and the capacity to do it? And I think the answer to that is yes, because it's not going to be an extensive maintenance that needs to be done. And then the second question is, will we be fully compensated for the time and materials used? And that's what the endowment fund is intended to provide.
Just to jump in on this, some of you may be asking yourselves, if we do this, are we shortchanging our parks department? And to that, I think the answer is no. I was over the moon excited about the Spark grant getting funded for Silver Beach, but that is a $850,000 grant. We are planning to bring $150,000 of our own cash towards the project. What that means is Parks Department is going to be busy and they're going to still be spending their money as we work on that project. If we do apply for anything for parks, it's probably going to be smaller projects. And MDNR has other programs that are more catered towards the smaller projects. MNRTF tends to be the big request. And then you've got Land Water Conservation Fund. You've got the Recreation Passport grants that are available for some of the smaller projects. So in doing this, I don't think we're taking on any risk of shortchanging ourselves for the Parks Department. I've communicated with Jill, and of course, she can come up with needs all day long for the parks. But I think she's also generally agreeable that with the funding of the Spark and the availability of smaller grants, that she was comfortable with this approach.
John?
Resubmitting Spark grant, is that a fool's errand? Or, because I'm a big fan of, I mean, you've done the work, and is there a different way to package that, to send it there so that it can be funded? I mean, just to stop it, and a lot of effort's been spent.
Yeah.
And so if the answer is it's a fool's errand, I get it, but if it's not,
Well, I wouldn't say it's a fool's errand, but it is such a long shot on these grants. I think there were $260 million of requests in round one. And the funding was what, $50 million in total, or $20 million in total was funded.
With multiple awards to this area.
Yeah. So, we've seen, if you see what's happened in Van Buren, Berrien, and Cass, we did very well as a region on that first round. My expectation is that they're probably going to look at other regions on round two. So we could resubmit it. First of all, the second round has not been announced yet, so we don't actually know when the submission dates are on this. We could resubmit it, but I just think that our likelihood of success is probably pretty low at this point.
So just for the group, so we got funded, Benton Harbor got funded, and then just up the road, Covert got funded. I think that I don't want to assume that if we put in that there's no chance, but the likelihood of us getting more, I would be surprised if we are able to get more for this area.
Now, there's going to be additional rounds too, John. I mean, I believe from what we're getting, the feedback we're getting from MDOT is that the TAP application is going to be well received. And if we get that, then we essentially have the funding available. If that doesn't work out, and we will know by the spring, well, actually midsummer if that doesn't work. If that doesn't work, we can come back into round 2 or 3 of Spark and try that again. But we're really focused on trying to get this TAP grant in because it's the path of least resistance for us right now.
I just, that's what John says, that as long as you've done the work, it can't be done then. And it sounds like if the TAP thing doesn't come through,
There'll be subsequent opportunities to apply for additional funding if that doesn't work. So, and that could be the case with these projects, not just this one, but trails projects everywhere in Berrien County, where you're going to have to make multiple attempts at multiple different funding sources.
So not knowing if you're going to get the grant or not, will the building start? Will it be doing it?
No, we won't be constructing any of the trail without the grants in place. What is funded right now and permitted right now is the construction of the tunnel under M63 that links the Whirlpool campus on both sides of the road. That will happen. But none of the trail construction will begin until we have all the funding available.
When you said a public hearing, we own it, or owns it, it's here, it's at Whirlpool?
No, we, as the applicant, the county has to hold the public hearings. So we'll do that. We'll get that scheduled sometime in the next 4 weeks.
And it's about the trail, not about the tunnel?
Not about the tunnel, it's about the trail, because I know the tunnel has been in the news recently, so, yeah, so.
And just as background on the tunnel, I'm sure everybody remembers, but admin committee spent months working through the trail policy. That trail policy then led us to the tunnel, essentially the agreement on us going after the permit. So what we have in place is we've got a maintenance agreement from Whirlpool to the county that ensures that they're paying for the maintenance, that they're paying for the installation. So that project is underway now. The detours are in place. And related, today's Herald Palladium, if you haven't seen it yet, there is an article about a dispute, not a dispute, a discussion occurring between Benton Township leadership and Whirlpool about an easement. I was hoping just to take 30 seconds and make sure that you are all aware of it. No action is being requested by the county. This is not a county issue. It's an issue between a local unit of government and private property. But I'm going to make sure that all of you have a copy of today's Herald Palladium coverage. And just in case anyone gets a phone call, you'll be armed with the background knowledge. You got anything you want to add on that topic?
No, for now.
Okay.
Are there any
Okay.
questions for Dan or Ryan on this?
Just expanding on John's comments, what is I know we have a lot, just lack of a better word, lobbyists that we work for us. What have they said about this park grant?
Well, our current lobbyist, to give credit, put in a great deal of effort in order to get the Spark grant for Jill. And I understand the idea, you know, the notion of layering these up and trying to hit them all at the same time so that you get one and not none. But again, I would just emphasize, we put all of our eggs in one basket on the Spark to try to get it for Jill. And I don't think I'm not confident that a subsequent application would be well received at this point.
Just as a follow-up to that statement, I would stress to all of you, Jill did an excellent job on preparing the Spark grant. Mike Crombeen was actively chasing that issue. And then a big thank you to the members of the legislature that went to bat for us. The feedback that I got was we weren't getting funded. To see that we got funded was a genuine surprise, a very pleasant surprise. But there was quite a bit of heavy lift going on in Lansing to ensure that we got those dollars for Silver Beach.
Yeah, and as I said, if we're unsuccessful with the TAP, we'll definitely look at the alternative funding program. Spark is going to be around for a while, until 2026 probably. The one drawback of using Spark and some of these other ARPA funded grant programs is that we have all of the federal bidding requirements that go into them as well. The costs are going to be higher as a result of that. Prevailing wages, Buy America, Build America. The TAP grant, because it's basic state funding, we're not going to have the same restraints on how we use the money, so it should be easier. The other benefit with the TAP grant I will add is MDOT does the work for us. So we don't actually receive the money and contract it. They do the direct contracting, and then they just invoice us for the cost share. So it's if we're successful, it's an easier way to build these. But we'll see.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, I'm going to offer some unsolicited praise. So I'm going to start with the admin committee. Getting through the trail policy was not easy. It certainly wasn't quick. But by doing that, you've set the county up to be able to navigate these types of projects and have very clear goal guidelines as to what is expected. That's a big deal. Whirlpool is abiding by that policy. And what it's doing is ensuring that any future policy or any future projects are going to do the same. So compliments to you all for getting that done. And then for Dan, the working relationship that he has with Whirlpool, with the local units, with Cornerstone is really impressive. And to be able to put together this type of detail, this type of deal, where the public is getting a whole lot of benefit without a whole lot of local dollars going into the development, that's great. And over 20 years, I've dealt with a ton of different economic development folks, and this is one of those reminders of just how skilled he is. Dan does a really nice job, and this is good work. Okay.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you for those comments, and I think we can see the results of it through the success with our staff, and thank you for your work, Dan, and thank you for bringing that to our attention, Brian. With that having been said, if there's no other questions on the subject, we'll move on in the agenda, and we come to the point of public comment. So if there's any members of the public that wish to comment, please do so.
Michael Haskins, Pipestone Township. Perhaps some of you have seen on MLive, is there a button I need to hit?
Yep. Oops, sorry.
Leave it to the pro. Very good. Perhaps some of you have seen on MLive, this MDOT, through consultants, has proposed to turn I-94 and most interstates in the lower peninsula into toll roads. This will result in an immense amount of traffic on local roads by people who do not wish to pay tolls. Some of you in this room are old enough to remember when the interstates didn't go through. This would be a disaster for Berrien County in more ways than one. I urge you as commissioners to sign a letter, send a resolution, contact the governor, whatever, in opposition to any toll roads in the state of Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baskin.
Yes.
Are there any other members of the public that wish to address the board? All right, hearing and seeing none. Other business? Brian, do you have any other business?
Nope, we're done a little bit early.
Yes.
Just real quickly, I'd like to just.
Mike.
Oh, yeah. Since it's other business, Mr. Haskins was kind enough to give me a call, and I wasn't there to take the phone call, but he told me what the topic was. And I would propose that we, as a board, would dig a little deeper into that topic. And that's what I would propose. Ask staff to find out a little bit more. The research that I did is very correct in what the state said is that all options are on the table. This is one of them. The one option is to do this. And I can't think of anything that would hurt the working man more than to tax them once they get back on the road. And I know they're trying to come up with ways to maintain the roads and to take care of electric cars, and there's a whole lot of things on the table. But I'd like to see the board at least get to the point where it feels guided or not guided to send a letter to the other county boards in the state. So I'd like to see what happens.
Thank you for that. John Chokwe.
Do you think this is something that Mike Crombie can get us an idea of what the state legislature feels about this? Because I know sometimes the governor might propose something that the state legislature might not 100% be on board with.
Information request has already been sent. Tomorrow we have Senator Lindsay, Representative Wenzel, and Representative Paquette taking the jail tour. This is something that we can certainly bring up tomorrow just to see where those three are at. But yeah, we'll do some legwork to find out how much traction this has, and we'll report it back to the board. But either way, if the board wants to issue a statement of concern, we can work on that. That's not a problem.
Would there be consensus from the members of this board to pursue that avenue? Have staff review it, come back, report, and maybe have a draft statement ready? Yes, Commissioner Kern.
Not being familiar with this topic, I'd like to know all the options that MDOT has laid out there. And if we're gonna oppose one, are we gonna be in favor of another one? You know, it just depends on where we're gonna go with this. Having the information is one thing, but then taking action on a resolution is something different.
So this is pretty early into the discussion topic. What I'll do is I'm gonna work with Mike Crombie, and I'll reach out to the local members of the legislature to get more information. And then lastly, I'll reach out to Michigan Association of Counties to see if MAC has taken an official position. But either way, we can load the board with information and make sure that everybody knows exactly what's being discussed in Lansing.
Yeah, understand that all I'm asking for is just a fact-finding mission at this point in time.
Okay.
I want to find out what's being talked about. The governor said all options were on the table, and that was one of them. So I want to find out what they're talking about.
So just a quick personal anecdote about toll roads. It's been about 15 years, but a dear friend of mine was doing his MBA with University of Denver. And they're essentially their capstone, their thesis, whatever you want to call it. His work group was assigned the question of would surge pricing work to help combat some of the massive backups on I-70 as you go any weekend from Denver into the mountains, most likely to go skiing. And that report was compiled, handed off to Colorado's Department of Transportation. If you go to Colorado today, tomorrow, and the coming months, you will absolutely see premium pricing lanes that are camera operated, that if you choose to get into the quote unquote fast lane, you're paying essentially the equivalent of surge pricing. I just bring that up to say, this was just in the idea stage 15 years ago, and now it's been actively embraced by Department of Transportation in Colorado. I won't be a bit surprised as you see that model kind of make its way both east and west. So I wouldn't be a bit surprised if this is one that doesn't go away real quick. We will do the legwork. We will get the board more information.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Michael.
I was gonna say, I know there's a lot of negative concepts on toll roads.
Yeah.
However, as a businessman, entrepreneur, when the toll roads Indiana raised their prices, other cars would go back through the local communities and our sales would go up. So we kind of liked it when people quit using the highways and drove in the streets. I like location. I like traffic going past my stores. And at that time, it was, we liked it and sales rose, getting them back into the community as opposed to by doing a bypass. So that was my 2 cents.
Appreciate it. If there are no other comments on this matter, is there any other business? Just one housekeeping thing that I wanted to point out. Commissioner Warfel made me aware of the Berrien Conservation District's annual dinner and presentation. I think we all received invitations to that. Tomorrow is the deadline to RSVP. It's March 2nd at 6 p.m. at MSU Extension. So public is welcome as well, but all of the commissioners are invited. So, if there's no other business to come before